Okay, welcome everybody, this is Grandmaster Alex Lenderman with the second part of the video series on the idea of pawn storms. And here we're going to look at some examples from the French defense. And earlier we looked at some pawn chain examples in the French defense. Now we're going to look at some pawn storm examples in the same French defense. So e4, e6, d4, d5. So here we're going to take a look at a game by Wesley against one of the bigger French expert, Sergey Volkov. A strong Russian grandmaster, formidable player, very experienced, who plays French almost exclusively, so he's definitely a well-known theoretician. And let's see how an elite player handles an experienced veteran, solid grandmaster. So white goes for the main line. Bishop e3, a6. The idea is to play b5 and expand on the queen side. It's a normal way to play. dc. Now, the idea is, of course, that castling here is not good because you're castling right into it. And we'll see actually an example like that sometime later on in the video. So dc, bishop takes, bishop d3. And now this is actually, lately has been a new popular line. In the past, they would play some other stuff. They would actually sometimes play a3 here or bishop e2, which are also very much playable. But dc, bishop takes c5, bishop d3. Well, the first point is actually quite deep. You would think, doesn't it just blunder a piece? But no, it doesn't, because, well, why doesn't it blunder a piece? So I'm going to give you guys a chance to pause the video to try to see if you can find it. So what does white do here? White takes knight. And after knight takes, white actually has to be accurate here. There was actually a game where white made a mistake here in an important team match. Now, it was played by 220-200 or so, but still, you know, even still, was an instructive mistake. In the game, bishop e4 was played, which is a grave error because of knight b6. And suddenly, two pieces for rook, and they actually cannot even take here because of knight c4, taking here, just black's completely dominating now suddenly. So white is just not better anymore in this position. Actually, white's worse. So the main move is, of course, knight e4. Threatening knight takes c5 and then bishop takes d4, and you could check it on the computer for yourself, but basically white ends up being on top. Not winning, but much better. So therefore d4 is not advisable for black, and because of that, black's main move is queen b6. Now, in one game I played with black, I castled. And you'll see a grand big point behind it. And that was at that point a novelty, but it was actually very interesting, which won me a very nice game. But anyway, we'll get to it. So in this game, queen b6 was played. The main line, bishop f2, and bishop b7. So of course, if black trades everything, then white's happy to play this kind of position because he's gonna play a4, and then knight e2, knight d4, and then try to play against this bad bishop in a positional sort of way. So white's always happy to get an edge like that. So black doesn't want that. He played bishop b7, keeping the tension. White castled. It's logical. And now black played a move rook c8, which is a little too fine. He probably really should have castled at this point. And now white brings the last piece into the game effectively with rook ae1. And now black made a mistake. He played g6. He thought that he's putting on hold the pawn storm, and of course g4 would not be good because of a move like h5, and white's king is also weak here. So now, what does white do? How does white develop pawn storm? How does white develop anything? It looks like black's just gonna castle and then play on the queen side. Looks like black's gonna be doing really well here. Well, Wesley has all the answers here. He played f5, double exclam. And gf, bishop takes f5, opening up the game in a simple pawn storm way, just simply crashing through the defense. And ef would run into another break, e6, and that would just be too devastating. Basically, black took on f2, but after rook takes f2, black's practically in a very bad shape here, close to lost. Knight a5, queen h6, d4, knight e4, and the game became a mop-up very quickly. And of course, white's going to be up a lot of material, and the pawn on d7 is very strong, and white's basically winning. So this was actually a very basic example of a pawn breakthrough, pawn storm. Now we're going to get to some more complex examples. And this game I really liked. When I was studying the French defense, I was trying to figure out what happened in this game. Because this game, Fabiano Caruana, another superstar from the US, won a very nice game against another French expert, solid grandmaster, Georg Meier. And let's see what happened between two very big theoreticians. And this is one of these games where it seemed like black was always fine. Even the computer always thinks black's fine. So here, that's another line. By the way, takes in bishop c5, trying to get quick development and castle, and then play a6, trying to start a pawn storm on the queen side. Okay, so what now? Queen f2, threatening knight takes c6. Well, actually not threatening because of bishop takes e3, but just preparing maybe at some point bishop d3. So black takes, and he played b5. So this looks great for black. Yeah, sure, he traded the bishop off, but now you'd think, what does the bishop do on d4? And now black's gonna get a free hand with an attack and eventually trade off the bishop. Looks fantastic for black, doesn't it? It looks like what's the problem? And it seems like white's attack is nowhere near to be found. Okay, so white goes back. Black played queen a5, threatening b4 and winning this. So white plays king b1, b4, knight e2, queen back to c7, knight d4, takes a5. Now here, white played, I thought, a very important move, because if he played a simple move like bishop d3, and then after bishop a6, he's going to be able to trade off this bishop, and then he's going to have the strong knight left, which could be useful both for defending the king side and potentially maybe even attacking. So he made sure that he leaves black with this bishop, even though it seems like an active piece, but as you'll see in the game, actually this stupid looking bishop ends up playing a much bigger role than the bishop on e6, because the bishop on e6 looks pretty. Looks like it's going to have a lot of prospects now, but it's still not quite that as useful as you'd like it to be. But the bishop on d4 is a super strong piece. Why? Because it both attacks and defends. It defends potentially black's pawn storm, and it helps white build up a pawn storm and stop black's ideas of f6. So it's a very strong attacking and defending piece. That's why I think, even though the computer doesn't understand it right away, I think the structure is actually better for white. And you'll see that Fabiano wasn't able to break through right away because he had to neutralize some of black's ideas first. But little by little, step by step, in a patient way, look at how white really outplays black in this position. So g4 first, a4, b3. Now it's very important to play b3, because otherwise if black plays b3, then this bishop is going to have a lot of scope, because the light squares are going to be weakened. So white played b3 because he knows that this bishop is such a good defender that it's going to be hard for black to actually break through, even on the a file. So queen c6, f5, bishop e5, rook d2, ab, and now cb. And now the a2 pawn is really well protected. There's nothing much on the a file, and as you'll see, even on the c file, it's going to be hard to really do much. So black tries rook a3, rook e1, rook a8, rook e3. So simply covering all the weak potential targets. Rook c8, queen e1, rook c7, queen d1, rook a8, rook e1, rook c8, queen f3. So just keeping everything under control, little by little improving the position in a very subtle way. Queen a6, rook e d1, almost like a computer. Queen a3, bishop b2, queen a6, queen e3. Finally preparing to try to play f6, queen g5, once everything is completely covered on the queen side. King h8. So now the idea is after f6 to play, after g6, maybe queen h6. But he didn't play g6, he played gf. I guess if g6, it's also probably doesn't help so much, because after this, white has an idea of rook e1, rook e3, rook h3. That could be also dangerous. Maybe even not right away, maybe even starting with rook e1, but the point is it's going to be hard to deal with all these potential threats on the h file. So black played gf, ef, and now black maybe should play queen a7. He played there, and now g5. And now white's idea is just to play h4, h5, g6, and break through like that. And eventually this bishop will become a monster with this pawns here. So black played h6, rook g1, and now black should have played rook g6. And then he's still kind of in the game, even though I think in the long run he should lose. After h4, and it looks like white's attack is much stronger. but he blundered right away in time pressure. Rook c8, and now white to play and win. What does white play? g6, exclaim. And now it's over because h6 is gonna fall and black had to resign. So you see how pawn's turn could be very important, but first of all you have to make sure you put your pieces in such a way where you're able to keep in check opponent's counterplay just as well. So now let's look at some games where black strikes back. And the first game I want to show you is the game I played in the last round. Actually 2 last round games. And both of which helped me propel to a very important result. This was a decisive game which helped me this year to get to the next year's World Cup in the Pan American Continental. So that was a huge game for me. Actually, all I needed in this game was a draw, basically, but I was ready for a fight also because I knew that my opponent will give me chances because he needed to win. So I'm playing basically a Grandmaster, 2496, even though he was still technically an IM. I'm black. And I really like this French defense. And here I played a very interesting way, bishop e7. And I castled. And after queen d2 I played b6. I'm not committing knight c6 yet, because I'm waiting to see what white does. If white were to play knight d1 positionally, I want to play a5, bishop a6. And you can see for that the game between Giri and Hare Krishna. Giri, one of the best theoreticians, lost this game as white, basically almost without a sound, against Pintala Hare Krishna in the Norway Chess in 2016. You can look at that game, it's very instructive, but it doesn't fit our theme. Maybe eventually we'll get to that game, but not in this video. My opponent castled right away, which I think is already very, very dangerous. It's really playing with fire, because remember we mentioned that if the pawn structure's not traded yet, cd, knight takes d4 is not played, black always has this idea of c4. So you have to always be careful. And actually, perhaps white should either play knight d1 or bishop e2 or maybe even h4, first trying to attack, so keeping flexible. But castles I think is a very dangerous move, which is already playing with fire. I played here. Now I didn't want to go c4 right away because then I can give him a chance to play a5 very quickly. And I actually had a blitz game like that with a very strong player and it was actually unclear. So I realized that it's better to play knight c6 first, because he doesn't really want to take here anyway because of takes. So I realized he cannot really stop my idea of c4 in the long run. So I played knight c6 first. And after king b1, a waiting move, which is probably not the best, then I go c4. And now it's clear that my attack is going to be very strong because I gained a very important tempo with knight c6. He played f5, only try. Now of course I don't want to take because after knight takes d5 I lose my central pawn, my position falls apart. Now, what do you guys think black should do here in this position? I'll give you guys some time to see if you can find it. Pause your video if you need to. How should black try to really play with his pawn turn? Should he play b5 or should he prepare it? Well, in races you have to remember, in pawn turn positions, whenever you go for a pawn turn, you're not supposed to be afraid of sacrificing temporarily material to open up lines. Material is secondary. The most important thing is to open up lines and to act as decisively as you can. So the idea here is you have to play decisively. b5, exclaim. No reason to play a6, b5 and lose tempos. Because in games like this, every tempo is very, very important. My opponent took and he took on b5. f6 wouldn't be nearly as effective because then I can take and there's just not much firepower here. So he took and he tried to take here, and after rook b8 he tried to go knight d6. Knight c3 is even worse because of queen a5. So he tried going here, and then I took, and then I went here. And it's clear already I'm doing really well. His last chance to really be in the game was to play c3, to try to play queen c2, and kind of keep control over the b2 square, and also stopping knight b4. Still, I prefer my position much more, but it's still a game for him. But queen e1 is already a step in the wrong direction. After queen takes and then bishop c1, it's clear that I just have too much initiative and his pieces are just too passive. So first of all, the idea here is there's no immediate breakthrough, so what do you do in that case? You improve your worst piece. Bishop d7. g3, knight e4. Now, of course, this is completely not working because after takes, queen a3, I have a decisive attack. So bishop g2. And now I have several ways to win. Knight b4 would actually be the easiest, but I couldn't quite work out the variations. I played queen a3, actually blew the win. Queen a3 is fine. b3 is his pretty much only move, because otherwise I thought rook takes b2 followed by rook b8. So he tried this one, queen a6, knight e5, just desperately trying to trade my piece off. Here I thought for a while, because a lot of options looked tempting, but I chose knight b4, a3, takes, bishop a4, and these are complicated variations, and I don't want to go through details, but the point is you can check it on your own with the computer. The point is that there are many ways to win, and I chose a variation which is also completely winning. ba, of course, queen takes a4 is mate, so he tried to do this. Rook takes b3, now threatening all sorts of discoveries, really breaking through. Takes, and king d2. If he goes there right away, then after c3 and then takes, then I take away some exit squares from the kings, so that's why he tried takes, and king d2. But now I still play here. And finally, a very important move is bishop b5, because if I go c2, then after rook d3, he's still defending. But I played there, and now actually I calculated up to here, and I saw that it's completely losing, because he simply cannot stop in my threats. So he tried rook d3 anyway. I took queen e2, and now there's this one last trick. Of course I have to be careful here. Of course there would be a grave mistake to play this move, hoping for rook f3, but oops, it's check, and suddenly the tables have turned. White's the one winning, so you have to be careful till the very end. So instead I played queen c4, here king g8, getting the king away, and of course rook takes d3 is not gonna go away. He played king d2, I took, and then he resigned, because after queen takes d3, rook f2 check first, and then rook f3. So this was actually a really nice game for me, and now I'm gonna show you one more game in the French defense, which I really liked. That was one of my best games I've ever played. It was in the last round of last year's Millionaire Chess Open, which helped me get to the Final Four of the Millionaire Monday last year. And this game I'm playing against strong Grandmaster Ray Robson, who is going to be in the US Olympiad team this year, and who 2 times in a row did extremely well in the US Championship. Obviously, 2680 player, obviously needs no introduction. So here I am with black against Ray Robson, and I'm playing a similar line, but here at that moment I did not know bishop e7 line yet, and then castles without knight c6, so I played here, and I played this interesting line. And here, remember we saw in the Wesley So game, queen b6 move. Here I played this castles move, which is very interesting, and the idea is actually deep. The reason no one has ever played it is because the computer just showed bishop takes h7 and said white's better. But actually it's not so clear, because after this, knight g5 here, there, takes, queen e3, takes, d4, here, takes, b4. We get this position with 3 pieces for the queen. And Stockfish thinks it's much better for white, but Komodo thinks it's closer to equal, and actually, I think it's sort of unclear. And while I think with perfect play, white might be a little bit better, I thought in for one game, since it's an unknown position, I decided to try this line. So, but Ray Robson was not familiar with it, so he just castled. He did not want to fall into my preparation. And now I played queen b6, and now the difference is there's no more bishop f2. And now here there are a lot of interesting lines. There's actually, even in this position, there's still a move bishop takes h7, which actually gets quite sharp with queen e2, but I think it's unclear. But again, my opponent was not familiar with all that stuff, so he played bishop g1, because he doesn't want to help me go here and help my pieces get through. Although he had some interesting ideas even here. But anyway, for this one video it's complicated to show all the possibilities. Anyway, the point is he had possibilities. He played bishop g1, takes, knight c5, king b1, b4, knight e2, and a5, and here come the pawns. So for now these are all simple ideas which almost anyone would be able to play. But we're gonna get to the critical positions soon. So queen e3, pinning the knight. I played rook d8, which is a very interesting move, in some cases wanting to play d4, and also getting out of bishop takes h7, knight g5, queen h3. Actually, he could still play bishop takes h7, but again, it's very complicated, and Ray thought after g4 he's still doing quite well. I played bishop a6, trying to trade off this strong bishop. f5, and now comes the critical moment. So I'm going to give you guys some time to try to see if you can find it. What would you do for black here? Now, originally I thought that maybe I'm actually not doing so well here, because it looks like white's about to play f6, queen g5, and white might be doing really well, right? And it looks like I'm not quite in time. Looks like the lines don't work, and I was even thinking about playing knight d7 and trying to play defensively, playing this kind of endgame. But then it occurred to me that I have this really strong move b3. And again, you have to remember that when we're dealing with pawn races, pawn storms, we have to act as quickly as we can. We cannot lose tempos. We have to make sure we act as decisively as we can. And after I looked at some lines, I realized this move just has to be good. And some lines can look like this. If AB, d4, takes, and then we win the knight. Just like if queen d2, takes, and black's breaking through first. As well as bishop takes a6, takes, rook b8 even, and then a4, and again, we're even not taking the bishop back right away, we're just simply breaking through like that. So the point is I'm better always, so he tried cb, d4, queen g5. So now he's really going all in, because after he realized he's threatening f6, so I first have to kick the queen away. And now he thinks, okay, if I take the rook, after g5, suddenly he has a very good counterplay for the rook. And it's actually unclear who is better here at all, even though I'm down a rook. I thought I can try to escape, but man, this would be a scary position to play. But very luckily for me, this was just my day, because I did not see this move ahead of time. But luckily when I came close, I found this move. So I'm gonna give you guys some time to try to see if you can find it. And the move is very strong with queen b5. I'm threatening to take it with the queen. And if I'm able to penetrate with the queen, then I'm really just dominating the game. Because then I'm also attacking. So Ray realized he had nothing better than this, but now knight e4 comes, again threatening to take the rook. And suddenly if rook c2, d3, and suddenly all the tactics just simply work in my favor. And I'm just like one step ahead, I'm able to neutralize his attack. And he found nothing better than going rook g d1, and trust me, I checked it with the computer, there's really nothing better. And after this, queen d5, centralization, simply stop. And now all these last ditch attempts simply don't quite work out. He tried desperately making something happen, but of course, now I'm just stepping up an exchange and there's really not much of an attack. In the last moment, of course, you have to be careful to the end. You cannot do this, because after queen f6, suddenly white's winning. So that's why you have to fight till the end. You have to be careful till the end. But of course, I played king h7, rook d8, knight e5, takes, knight takes f7. And after queen f6, knight g5, king h8, he just resigned because I'm going to be mating him and he's just down too much material. So you have to remember the pawn storms. You have to be not afraid to sacrifice material, and you have to look for all sorts of checks, captures, threats. And you have to remember, in a race, you have to act as decisively as you can. And look for the most active possibilities. Of course, you have to keep in mind prophylaxis as well, but hope you guys learned a lot from this video on pawn storms, of how to some interesting attacking and defensive ideas. And looking forward to showing you guys a last video on the idea of the topic of pawn storms involving the Sicilian defense. So I can't wait. So until next time, this has been Grandmaster Alex Lenderman signing off. Take care.